I mean, also after playing my live set in a concert venue, I really love to chat with people who listen to my music, and when they like to explain what they saw, like what kind of picture they were drawing in their heads while listening to It's Not Quiet in the Void, I just love that. And it's just an individual story of each listener that has their own rights to be, and there's no wrong and right what you see in terms of listening to this kind of music. And it's nice. I mean, yeah, it was not my first crucial intention to make music to for the public to have their own imaginary movies happening. Right. Which is also not, I mean, that could also be a nice intention to produce, but that was not my crucial intent to do that.
Welcome to Ambient Discourses, conversations with musicians and composers who create musical experiences and sonic landscapes. My guest on the program is Annie Aries. She's a brand new addition to Everest Records and is an innovative sound designer and artist who's built her own modular synthesis rig, has collaborated with numerous artists, and is finally striking out on her own with her debut album, It's Not Quiet in the Void, of which we delved into in our conversation among numerous other topics. I think you're going to find this conversation just simply delightful. Well, let's get right to it. I present my conversation with electronic artist Annie Aries. Welcome, Annie. It's great to have you on the program here, and I'm really excited to dive in and have a conversation with you, not only about your new release that you've got coming out, which is called It's Not Quiet in the Void, and that is out on Everest Records, and that comes out January 26th. It's an experimentation in noise and sound and ambience, and it's some really interesting textures, and I'm really excited to have you on the program to not only talk about that, but talk about the things that are important to you and get a little deeper dive into your sensibilities and your art history and all that. So welcome to the program.
Hi, Michael. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So before we get too deep in the topical conversation here, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, your musical background, and how you found yourself to where you are today?
Okay. So, hi, I'm Annie Aries. I am a Swiss-Philippine composer from Bern. Well, I grew up in Switzerland. I study music and media arts here at the University of Arts. And I did a bunch of collaborations with interesting, inspiring people ever since. I had some bands. And I started my solo project, I guess, 3 years ago. And it's my first album to launch.
So what got you into creating music within the noise and the sound, experimental sound genre? What to you was the drawing factor in that form of expression?
I was always very fascinated by computers, and I also enjoyed making my own recordings. We always had a radio at home, and I record my own mixtapes when I was a kid, and stuff like that. And but I also had piano lessons, and I learned how to play jazz piano, and I also enjoyed that. And at some point when I finished high school, I really wanted to study music, but I was not 100% sure whether I just want to stick to one genre, which was jazz, or also learn how to produce, or to learn audio recording and mixing and stuff like that. And I had a great piano teacher who brought me to the fields of electronics, and he said at some point, hey, there's a program called Music and Media Arts, a bachelor program. Why don't you enroll there? And so I did the pre-college course. I passed the entrance exam, and ever since, it's a great adventure journey. I kept on discovering new things in the realms of experimental and electronic music, which was the main focus in that particular BA program. So that's when it all got started. Yeah.
What were some of your notable projects and things that you worked on while you were there at the university?
Well, I composed a lot for traditional instruments, for piano or also accordion and live electronics. I didn't really release them. They were just like presented or premiered at the semester presentation thing that was for, like, it was a festival and you could go there as a interested person in experimental music. And yeah, it had a little audience. That was great. But I've never recorded them like professionally or something like that. But that's how I learned how to compose and think a little bit more about how electronics can be used as an instrument or instrumental tool to step a little bit further in the musical concept, I think.
What were some of the concepts that that you were exploring and found yourself fascinated with?
Of course, drone music was one thing that got my attention. Well, that drew my attention ever since. I mean, also my new release will be very much in the drone music fields. But also, I mean, I also was very inspired by learning granular synthesis or time stretch, to use it as a tool, like a tool to compose or think about sound.
So tell me, let's talk about your new album, It's Not Quiet in the Void. I read that you had basically built your own granular synthesis unit. Tell me a little bit about that, and what were some of the fundamental, like, meta concepts that you were playing with when you were first exploring sounds before you even started producing your first album? What were some of the concepts that you were toying with?
Well, I've always made my own recordings, and like sampling was a thing that was very, or not new to me, but I knew a bunch of songs, like pop songs or hip hop songs, that sampling was like a strategy in composition. And then I learned in school eventually that granular synthesis is using a smaller amount of a time frame to make repetitions, and I experimented a little bit with that. So I've built it, or I used like a draft to build my own granular synthesizer or synthesis tool with Max MSP, and that showed me, like, okay, this is a way to create texture, for example, and whatever you use as a sound source, which could be like a field recording from, I don't know, birds, or from your latest walk with your dog. You can just create these amazing textures that are a little bit unpredictable, of course, because you never know. You really never know what happens. And this is really something very inspiring to me.
There is something really interesting about the unpredictability in generative music. There's a lot of granular synthesis artists that I've listened to, and even some that have explored the concept of tape loops and, Frankensteining old cassettes and, giving themselves an arbitrary length to work with, and then embedding the sound on that, and then watching and listening the sound itself evolve as the tape begins to erode or wear out over time. And it's really fascinating, the life cycle of sound and how it evolves. What are some of the things that were there any artists or albums that you, looking back, that really influenced you in exploring granular synthesis?
Oh, names.
I know names are terrible for me too. I know. I'm sorry to do that to you.
Well, I mean, not only granular synthesis comes up to my mind right now, but also working with field recordings or recordings that you take from outside of your world and then just putting them into a device. I think the piece from Chalman, Palestine, Heineken, Brooklyn. Oh, what is it called again? Can I Google it up?
Yeah,
you?
Go for it. You can Google it. While you're Googling, maybe I'll take this opportunity to kind of share a little bit, maybe with the listeners, some of the things that you've got coming up. I mean, and some of the things that you've even put your hands to. You've at your time with Bern University of the Arts, you've acquired your master's there, and have become a faculty member of the Sound Arts Department, which that always seems like a big achievement to me when you've progressed all the way through academia, and then now you are an influencer. Now you have some a little bit more clout within the university structure, and being able to introduce some really interesting ideas. Plus, you've had some amazing projects that you've been a part of, and festivals that you like, the Mizan Music Festival in Brooklyn and Electroacoustic Music Fest. A number of great things, and plus some of these projects that you've got yourself in, that you've involved yourself in, like the new Dust project. I really liked that. The one with Marcel
thanks so
Zayas.
much.
I really loved that animation too. It really connected with that. Plus, you've got, you are traveling. You've got some gigs coming up. Of course, you got a couple gigs in Zurich coming up in February, and Montreal in February, New York City in February 23rd, and Rhode Island March 1st. Those are all live sets. Tell me a little bit about your live sets. Are you kind of mixing a little bit of the drone soundscape kind of noise thing, or is it a mix of that with other traditional club mixes?
Before I answer that, Michael.
Yes.
The piece is called Jamaica Heineken's in Brooklyn from Chalman, Palestine. This is a really amazing piece that, I don't know, inspired me so much that I also wanted to, at some point in my life, produce music by myself,
That's awesome.
like this composer did. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll try and get that into the show notes.
Cool.
Tell me about the live sets that you're going to be performing.
So I'm performing with my custom-made modular synthesizer. I've been working and assembling this instrument the last three years. I keep on optimizing and buying new modules and replacing older modules to, perform with it. Since I cannot save like sets or presets, I also record sounds that I like when I rehearse, and then I have also a module that I can repeat these recordings. So I do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So I have a module that I really like. It's a 16 voice oscillator by 4MS, a really amazing and very powerful tool to produce long and super harmonics layered oscillators that you can also thin out and also stack more sounds. So I perform with that. That's like the live component, one of the live components. I also have two granular synthesis modules, one by Make Noise and one by Erica Synths, the beats and the other one. Anyways, I mean, there I'm using some snippets, like short recordings from field recordings from my environment, and then I time stretch them and freeze them to even more textured layers. So this is also like a semi-live component, but no, it's live. It's performed live because I change the grain size on stage. Then I also have a spectral filter module, which I can work a little bit more in the upper harmonic, in a more harmonical way, if I work with field recordings to filter out more semitones. So yeah, so I just keep on layering for 40 minutes on stage.
I love it. I just love it because it becomes a unique snapshot in time, a unique performance that, unless you actually go through the extra steps to make sure you're recording it, it's one and it's done. You'll never hear it again, and it's unique, and that's one of the things that I just really appreciate about artists like yourself, that you put yourself out there a little bit more of a risk, going live, it's going to be complete improv, and who knows, it might work out. It might have some degree of failure, because I've been there, where you're like, well, that didn't quite work out.
Right.
But that's the beauty about entirely improvisational performances, because it's all about trying to flow in the moment and being as pliable and flexible to whatever arises out of the music itself.
Yeah, I totally resonate with what you say. I totally also agree with. It's a little bit risky because you're trying to make some or produce some nice crossfades, and there is always a potential that you just mess up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, especially like even the live loopers. I have mad respect for
too.
live looping. Because that's really easy to mess up. You have to be really rock on with that.
I know, right?
Button to continue the phrase, and
I know.
Let's dive in a little bit more about I want to read, if I may, this description. I really, really love the description. This text is by Mimi Kine.
Yeah.
About your release, It's Not Quiet in the World. And if I may, I'd like to read this, and let's talk about this a little bit, because I love the imagery that they have introduced here. She writes, "It's Not Quiet in the Void" by Annie Aries takes you within the warm reaches of an expanse, piercing you with softened shard of sound like sea glass, and high voltage threads woven into thick cord. Dawn, turning tangerine and bristling with potential. A slow lunge, undeniable change, an unveiling, recognition, intangible certainty, like meaning within a dream. A threshold. I love that. Intangible certainty. Love that. Revelation settles, and what is left is unknown. A seesaw between our pillars of understanding. She's Okay. It's not quiet in the void, where there is ceaseless oscillation, where needles spin, then settle, then spin again, sustained by the constant of their unknowing. There is a stillness in the uninterrupted travel. It's not quiet in the void. Things appear distant, suddenly in front, only to settle far off. Surrounded in sound, you turn on the tap and liquid comes out in varied consistencies. Some lands on your shoulder and rolls slowly down your arm like thick molasses, and some streams rapidly off your limbs, and some suspends around you, too light to fall any further. It looks like water. It's not quiet in the void, where the small becomes immense, and the immense becomes small. It's just a really profound piece of text to me. Talk about your relationship with Mimi and some of your reflections on this reflection about your release.
Yeah, Mimi is a great friend of mine. She's also an artist. I met her when she was in Bern. She had a residency in Bern, and we became instantly friends and connected in so many ways. She's from Australia, by the way, and yeah, she's also a musician, but I think recently just makes a lot of musical or audiovisual installation. Like, she's very precise in her installations. She creates these small creatures that move like generatively, and yeah, it's really beautiful what she creates in her works. And you know, when I was working on my music, I just knew I have to ask Mimi for some mirroring my current state of the art, I think, and yeah, it was very obvious to me to ask her to write about the music I created, and yeah, that's the outcome of it. I am so happy about it. It's so beautiful. I know.
It really is. I mean, I love some of the imagery that she's conjured up here. Things appear distant and suddenly in front, only to settle far off. I mean, it's kind of this hyper realism, but very jarring and abstract. And I don't like to use the word dystopian, but there's a very industrial and metallic quality about it. You can feel the harshness of humanity through it, the things that maybe probably are less wise choices as a species. And it feels like there's a weird juxtaposition, not weird, but there's a juxtaposition of the two different ideas of harshness, and there's brief moments of relief in there, and it's really fascinating to me to be able to move between those kinds of spaces. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about and I'm thinking of the uninitiated listeners, because I know there's a lot of listeners out there who they're maybe not as initiated into the world of atmospheric and noise and experimental sound genres. Could you give a primer for the average listener, helping them to understand what they might be hearing, and ways in which that they can process and reflect on the art itself?
Yeah, I mean, what you will hear when you start the record are sounds that slowly changes. It takes a while until movement happens into another sound cluster, I will call it, and then eventually it becomes more noisier and also more, well, it becomes more dense, I guess. Probably also a bit more rhythmical, like we would eventually also move away from drone sounds that could sound a little bit more loud or more present, and you probably find yourself stop dreaming or associations or images might change, and it disrupts a little bit the nice cozy place that you try to imagine, which I think also happens on if you turn the vinyl to the B-side. It won't leave probably the harshness or the loudness or the noises, because they're always constantly changing into another texture, or I would say sound color, until you will find yourself only be hearing white noise in the end. So it might start slowly and nice to hear, nice to listen to, or nice is maybe not the best word to put it, but you might feel or find yourself being comfortable with what you hear, but then it shifts to something that might sound a little bit more I don't know.
I can find some parallels for me when I think about the inundation of how inundated we are with media, with information, with everyone posting their hot takes on this and that, and it's, for me, there's a little bit of a parallel between like with the presence on social media. You get kind of lulled into a comfort of scroll, but as the algorithm starts to become more and more manipulative to try and keep you there, there's an undercurrent of intensity and an undercurrent of energy and noise that you're, by that point you become hypnotized, and you've already blown 2 or 3 hours on Instagram or whatever, and finally you realize, I've been lulled into this noise, this vacuum of space. And then finally, when you release yourself from it, when you give yourself the distance, then it's, it feels for me like the end of Formation, the last track on the album, that you feel like that there's some relief from the slow build of intensity and being surrounded by and enveloped by lots of texture and aggressive tones and stuff. It's for me, it's a good piece and a reflection of being able to articulate some of the things that we deal with as humans, and having a musical metaphor for that. So that's, for me, kind of when I listen to it, that's what I get out of this. That's the thing that processes through me, is I can see parallels for us as a species or as humanity, and the constant build of noise and intensity. And at some point, you just gotta go, I need to give myself space from the world, and I need to come back to maybe that sense of drone, that sense of equanimity, or I don't know, at this point I guess I'm rambling.
It's wonderful. I love it.
But it really is an interesting thing, and I love that there's the tunes themselves have their own life, their own equanimity. I mean, you do have some level of control on, from the granular synthesis perspective, but it starts to take on a life of its own and become its own living entity, which actually is how I feel about music anyways. I feel that there's a distinct difference between the artist and what they create. As the artist, we are merely an usher. We usher something into being that resonates either with inside of us or something that we observe and process. And then from that, we create something that is just a reflection of that, and it's just this snapshot. It's like a Polaroid picture, and it's off. And you can't claim it as your... I mean, you can, but it's not really yours to own anymore, because now the song or the compositions have their own life cycle of what happens when STOLACE listens to it, what happens when this person listens to it, and this person, and suddenly it becomes its own life form in my own estimation. But
yeah, definitely. I mean, also after playing my live set in a concert venue, I really love to chat with people who listen to my music, and when they like to explain what they saw, like what kind of picture they were drawing in their heads while listening to It's Not Quiet in the Void, I just love that. And it's just an individual story of each listener that has their own rights to be, and there's no wrong and right what you see in terms of listening to this kind of music. And it's nice. I mean, yeah, it was not my first like crucial intention to make music to for the public to have their own imaginary movies happening. Which is also not, I mean, that could also be like a nice intention to produce, but that was not my crucial intent to do that. I can maybe explain a little bit from where I got my inspiration from. Because when you look at the artwork, you see a cross section of a stone, and it's a xenolith from Cape Town. So I have a friend who is a geologist. He was researching this kind of stones that are found in that specific area. So the stones, they slowly rise into the surface deep under the sea due to a volcanic eruption, and it takes them many, many years until they are on the surface. So that was very inspiring to me because, that was inspiring to me, especially for the title, that it's definitely not quiet in the void. There must be something happening right there. And that was also like very inspiring to me when I was working on the music that I composed. That was always a little bit, like in the background or in my head, resonating with me, that it's nice to think about something which lies deep down under the ground that comes up to the surface, and you just don't know what it is or what's the outcome of that specific thing.
It's a mystery. There's lots of things like that about our ecosystem and the planet that we live in. There's lots of mysterious things, and there's a parallel for me in this, is because I also think about the reality of dark matter in the cosmos. The idea that the spaces between ourselves and other objects that we perceive, it's not empty. And there's lots of energy moving everywhere and lots of forces. I mean, were it not for the atmospheric pressure around us, I mean, we would explode. we would not be able to literally contain ourselves.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's, I don't know. I'm really happy that you created this, because this is one more really good piece that helps illustrate that not everything that we perceive is the way it is. I mean, that there are hidden forces, and underneath it all, there's the chaos of energy and the collision of particles and atoms and all sorts of microscopic things that we can't see with the human eye, with the naked eye, but it's life. It's just churning, and it's underneath it all. There is a lot of noise. There's a lot of texture, and so I love it. I love this album. I really do.
Thanks so much for saying that. It means a lot.
That's great. That's great. So, tell me about your relationship with the Everest Records. Tell me a little bit about that and how that came to be.
Yeah, Everest Records is a record label based in Bern. They supported or released a bunch of really cool artists, and from Bern, but also from other places, and they have their main focus on experimental electronic approaches in composition or in music in general. And I've always liked what they released, especially I've always been a great fan of Julian Sartorius, who also released on the label. Alphatronics is a person that I also like as an artist, as a musician. So yeah, very inspiring people on that label. And so they also have super cool concerts ongoing. Once a year they rent the botanical garden in Bern, and they just program some concerts there, and they're always so special because it's in the palm tree house. So you're just surrounded by palm trees, and it's warm and cozy.
That sounds fantastic.
And they dim the lights, and you just can enjoy sounds and live performers and their attempts or approaches to their music and experimental ways. Yeah, it's really amazing. So I got to play there a year ago, and I always knew who Matthew and Michael were, and then I just asked Matthew if I could at some point release on Everest Records. I was bold enough to just ask directly. That was before the concert, and then he was like, yeah, sure. But because of the pandemic, the waiting list is quite long, and things changed a little bit also in terms of vinyl production, if you would like to release a vinyl. But we could talk about it. So I played my set, and then after the concert, Matthew came and just said, let's do it. So that was amazing. Yeah, that's cool. So I've been working with them for maybe a year now. Like, the exchange started a year ago, and they gave me some deadlines when to give, like bio and text, stuff like that last summer. And yeah, the collab was really fantastic. They're amazing people.
That's cool. I'm really happy for you that you landed a really good relationship there with the label. I hope the best for you and moving forward. What are some of the kind of dipping into a little bit more the philosophy behind music and art and creating? What are some of the fundamental things that really guide you as an artist, or some of the things that really kind of point to your sensibilities or your what? Let's see, I am failing at this question here, but what are some of the things that that just really guide you as an artist from a philosophy standpoint, or kind of some of the fundamental frameworks that kind of structure your thoughts around art?
That's a I love that question. I hope I can answer it well. I might be someone who spends a lot of time in my head, and I learn how to slow down when I need more time to make decisions or to think about things. And also decisions about everyday life, not only in the arts. So I need a lot of time for myself to reflect on the world, so I can better understand what I want to do next. Or that might sound a little bit strange, but slowing down helps me a lot to get along well with myself, so I can get along with the world, I think.
Right.
And probably this is something that I, of course, learned the past 2-3 years due to the pandemic, of course, because it's when I really, I decided to start my solo career. I was always collaborating with great artists to that particular moment, and then I just made my final decision. Let's just give it a try. At least that you tried,
Yeah, absolutely.
I was still studying. I did this exchange in Berlin at the Humboldt University. I also studied musicology back then, and and when I came back, I knew probably I should take a break from my studies and just focus on more artists, like arts, or how I want to see myself as an artist, I guess. So that was I would say a leap of faith that I took.
I really like that, what you mentioned about giving yourself space to think and process about the world. I think that is a really crucial element for us as musicians, as artists, to carve out substantial time for yourself to stop, to listen, to observe. As the old adage goes, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, respect the ratio appropriately. But it's fundamentally important for us to listen and to observe, and then to take the extra time to stop and think and really process through. And that's really hard to do nowadays with how bombarded we are with media and social networks and all of the other things that vie for our time and our attention, and which is one of the things that I just really love and appreciate about ambient and atmospheric and neoclassical music, the whole genres, because they give you space. They give you space to think and process, and it doesn't necessarily demand for your attention every constant moment, of the song.
Right.
It becomes it becomes hypnotic.
And
trance-like. It's I can't tell you how many times that I've sat down, or not sat down, but like one of the things I like to do is I go on these really long walks, and I will take an album or two with me, and it just becomes a sacred space to go listen intently while I walk. And so that's all I do. And
that's amazing.
And I can't tell you how many times that I've put on a really good ambient album, and a lot of the times it's the people that I'm having conversations with, and then I just get lulled into this dreamlike state as I'm walking, and I find myself in the composition. I'm just completely absorbed by it, and you lose all sense of time and space, and the only thing that becomes real at that point is the sounds and the music and the vibrations and the complementary and competing resonance that's found in there, and it becomes fertile ground for your imagination, for even processing through life events. I've had compositions that they just move me so much, and it happens to be at a time when, you know, maybe my brain is processing something from my past, or maybe something I'm working through in the present, and the music and those things kind of intersect and become a space for working on me, or working on ideas, or processing through thought. And that's one of the things that I just really so fondly appreciate artists like yourself that are further contributing to the genre, because it's I think of all of the, not that there's anything wrong with all of the other music out there that, you know, that 20 seconds in and we're already into the second verse. You know,
I know. Yeah, that's just music that, it changes also all the time, how you feel about and what kind of music that you let through your, you know, through your system, and you resonate with. That also changes. But if there's something that you resonate with for a while, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. And like you said, it changes. You know, the same album, the same composition, you might feel entirely different about the day the day after.
Totally.
And you may not even connect with it anymore, which, you know, on some levels it's kind of sad, but it's the reality. It's a moment by moment thing where we as human beings are constantly evolving. We are constantly changing.
Yeah, totally.
We are not the same person we were even 7 days ago,
or yesterday,
or even yesterday. You know, our cells are constantly regenerating. We are an endless font of constant progression, and I think it's because of that we, you know, I don't think we're meant to be bombarded as much as we are with all of the information that's out there. And it's I just love that we have space in ambient and atmospheric music, and I love that the thing that I just really appreciate about your album is that it takes you into a space of dealing with, you know, I think in this space you can deal with some really uncomfortable ideas and process through them and reflect. And, you know, I think that there's, I don't know, I see a lot of utility in the music that you create, as well as other people within our shared genres. So on that end, I just really appreciate your contributions to the music scene.
That's so cool.
Tell me, what are some of the projects that you've got coming up in the winds?
So I still have a composition going on for the ICST. It's like the Institution for Computer Technology in Zurich. I've been attending a workshop there, and I will compose for moving loudspeakers. I try to adapt a lot of my life set instrument concept on that setup. So I want to play my sounds on moving loudspeakers. So this is kind of something that I really like to explore and experiment with, because, you know, we always open up space with sound. So
yeah.
So it's a nice experience for me to work with Peter Farber, who is a researcher at the institution. And it's going well so far, because the system of the speakers works really well.
So they move. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, they move like on a XY.
Yep.
How do you call it?
Yep, the access.
Access.
I know words are hard.
Oh my God, yeah. So they can move not 360 degrees, but like from up to down and left to the right. So I have 4 of them.
Wow, that's got to be really cool, and that could really open up some interesting possibilities.
Yeah,
shifting.
I guess. I hope so. I've just been finishing more the device working aspects on it, so they work, and I can send them MIDI notes. So it's very convenient to just make the movements automatically, so I can play my instrument live with the optimized movements. But there's still, I still have to figure things out because I don't have them at my studio or at my place where I work. So I always have to go to the institution and make some time to
really
experiment.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Moving
but it's
speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I just love really creative ideas like that. I've been wanting to, on a personal note, been wanting to experiment with surround sound in a live setting and enveloping everyone with sound from different angles and different reaches in the room, and so that everyone has their own unique experience when they're listening to different things. Maybe it might be a simple 4-point surround of different things in the room, but it's something I've been wanting to play with, and so that's cool.
It's a huge field to discover. I think it's also something that our students at the University of Arts love to explore, because we have the resources for them to dig into that topic, and some of them really compose great music for specifically like 16 loudspeakers or a dome with 12 loudspeakers. And it's really, if you have the chance to experiment with multiple loudspeakers, then it's really cool. It's just not something that you just have in your studio,
Right.
I also don't have 6 loudspeakers.
I know.
Or 4. Or even 4.
Yeah, or even 4. Just doing okay with 2.
I know.
So one of the things I like to ask artists is sometimes we often have our own things that we have learned along the way, things that have become mainstays in our approach to music, things that have guided us when we create, and help us stay true to ourselves and stay true to our expression. For other artists out there that are starting, or maybe even considering starting out, what are some of the things that you have learned along the way so far that you feel like, man, if I would have known about this 5 years ago, this would have really helped me out a lot? What are some things some bits of wisdom that you have learned along the way?
Or many, probably. I can think of one. Like, the experiment is fundamental. Allowing yourself to experiment is important, and great if you can. Allow yourself to experiment and to not knowing which direction that you should head to or want to head to. Creating music without, any purpose is fine.
I like that.
We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, I think, and we compare a lot to the world and to many other, great artists. Of course we do that, but it's just something that it should inspire us. We should be, like open-hearted, I think, if we do that and be happy for what's happening today.
I like that. Be open-hearted, be flexible, be willing to play and experiment. I've heard a number of people give that same advice about be willing to play and don't take it too seriously. Get out there, just have fun and learn, grow, and create for yourself. All bits of solid advice that I think that as musicians, as artists, I think it's like a mantra that we need to keep coming back to, keep returning to. It's so easy to get caught up in the numbers game and comparing ourselves, and which then that just leads to imposter syndrome, and then we start wondering, or we start worrying about being found out that we're a fraud, or that we're not as good as such and such artist or whatever. But I like your advice. It's from a place of innocence. It's a place of like, let's be our authentic selves and just get out there, have fun, just play. And
yeah, totally.
Don't worry about the results.
Yeah, and you also don't have to study arts. You don't have to study music to be able to create or produce music. It's just a way.
It is a way. Yes, I love that too. It is just one path of many paths.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely fantastic. Annie, I just want to say thank you so much for your time, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. And the album it's really cool. You've got some really unique sounds and textures in there, and it doesn't sound like anything else I've ever heard. So it's and which is a testimony of your own unique signature upon the world, and it's wonderful. The album is It's Not Quiet in the Void, and it releases January 26th. The vinyl ships January 24th. By the way, the vinyl is beautiful. I love that pink wax. Like, I want that in my collection. And I love the artwork too. I love the textures, and just it's great. Fantastic. Well,
Thank you so much
to you and to and my thanks, of course, off to Everest Records. I'm just thankful that for the connection here. And Annie, many 1,100 blessings to you, and much peace and equanimity, and to everything that you do in your future projects. And I just wish you well and just a life of complete fulfillment.
Thank you so much, Michael. You too. All the best for you as well. Thanks so much for your invitation.
Oh, thank you so much.
My thanks to Annie Aries for the remarkable and thoroughly enjoyable conversation, plus also to Everest Records for sending her music my way and connecting us conversationally. You can find her debut album, It's Not Quiet on the Void, plus the awesome 12-inch pink vinyl at anniearies.bandcamp.com. You can also find her album on most streaming music services around the world. Thank you for tuning in to Ambient Discourses, conversations with musicians and composers who create musical experiences and sonic landscapes. Until next time, keep creating.